Oh, there we go. I think we're good.
I think
Yep,
we're Gucci.
I think so.
Yes!
We're Gucci like baby.
It's fine. Sorry, I'm not technically savvy. Okay. Hi,
Neither am
everyone.
I. Neither am I. Thanks.
Lord. All right.
Oh,
Hey,
sorry.
everyone. My name is Victoria Alexander. I am the Linkage to Care Coordinator here at Center South. Um, like I said last week, we are going to be having all of our partners join us throughout the course of the next few weeks, discussing different topics and different things that are coming up for them. We just really want to make and create a space in order for all of us to kind of come together, especially during COVID times. Um, Primarily what I do here is I work as the linkage to care coordinator. And what that means is I help link you to care. So whether you are looking to get connected to medication for HIV or you're looking to get connected to PrEP or PEP, let me know. Or if you just want to get connected to social programs and just be a part of a larger movement, which we're trying to have here at Center South, let me know. You can either drop a comment down below or give me a call at my direct line, which is 323-993-8970, or email me at valexander, ALEXANDER, at lalgbtcenter.org. And without further ado, or pause, or technical hiccup, fingers crossed, I present to you CHLA.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Really, really quick question. Are we going until 6 or are we doing a full hour?
Totally up to y'all. I mean,
Okay.
if you can, I mean, with all the hiccups, we can just go 2-6. And like I said, we're figuring this out.
Okay.
So go to 6 and then we'll make it work.
All right. Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Victoria. Thank you for having us. Thank you to the LGBT Center and the Center South for having CHLA and B3 here today for this really awesome talk. Today we're going to be talking about, the topic is I'm positive or I'm HIV positive or I'm pos. Now what? What's the next steps after that? My name is Carlos and I am a health educator with the B3 program at CHLA. And with me today is my co-facilitator, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Lenworth, Lenny for short. I'm also a health educator, obviously, with B3. Been doing this work, working with young, queer, gay, bi men living with HIV for almost 9 years now. And been doing this work for almost 10, 11 years now. So really happy to be here and just answer any questions that anybody might have.
Yes, and so please, if anyone has any questions, if anyone's joining and watching and has questions about anything, feel free to message the LGBT Center's page or the B3 page, and we will try to get back to you as soon as we can or answer the questions live during the chat. We'll get a little bit into what B3 is maybe towards the end, but for just a really short introduction, B3 is a anti-stigma and empowerment program for queer men of color who are living with HIV, youth specifically, so ages 29 and under. And we do that program at CHLA and at the LGBT Center, and that is facilitated by Lenworth and myself. So Lenworth and myself both have, I guess, a unique perspective on the topic um, because, is it okay to say now, Lenworth?
Of course, of
Okay,
course.
because we both have lived experience. So I myself have been living with HIV for about 10 years or about 11 years. And Lenworth, how about yourself?
Same. I would say maybe 11 years, right around the same time. Yeah. hmm
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So The topic, I'm positive, now what? Like what happens like once you so we have a couple of things that we'll talk about, but let's just start out from the top, from the very beginning. How did we find out that we were living with HIV? What was that that experience? And obviously it's through HIV testing. It's kind of the only way you can figure out that you're living with HIV, right? Um, and so what are some of the reasons why that prompted you to go get tested for HIV?
Well, I already kind of felt that there was a possibility that I could have become positive. Somebody who I was with found out that they were positive while we were still seeing each other. So yeah, I just went and got it checked on out. I hadn't. Luckily, it was relatively soon after I think that I had kind of seroconverted or became positive. So yeah, luckily I was able to catch it relatively soon and dive right into handling whatever business I needed to take care of myself. Yeah.
Yes. And was HIV testing that was a part of your healthcare routine, or was that the first time you had ever been tested?
So yeah, I actually, because even at that point in time, I was working, in the queer community, in prevention spaces and stuff like that, and so yeah, I had been testing frequently. I think every three months probably. Um, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So when I went and received my diagnosis, it was only my second HIV test that I've ever taken, and I was 19 at the time. So at this point, HIV testing honestly wasn't really a part of my normal like routine, because since we both just said that we were diagnosed about a decade ago. So, back then, everything was different, right? Being a queer person was different. Being as young as we were was a different time. So I was 19, and you were how old, if you don't mind sharing?
No. How old was I? No, 22. I think it was.
Or how young were you? How young were you?
Right. There you go. It's all with the phrasing. I was 22.
Yeah, so that helps frame everything, because maybe we were just coming into who we were as queer people, and figuring out that HIV testing is something that we need to integrate into our routine for sexual health. Okay, cool. So then we can, just talking about like receiving that diagnosis. I always tried to have the mindset of, while yes, it was a, traumatic experience, and while it was something that was really scary to go through to receive that diagnosis, especially again, we think about the time 11 years ago. We don't have the resources like we do today, but back then it was pretty scary. Not saying that it isn't now, but I just always liked to keep the mind frame that no test result is a bad test result, because no matter what it is, if it's negative or if it's positive, it's going to lead you to the next steps that you have to take care of yourself. So if it's negative, then that can lead you to preventative options, and if it's positive, then that can lead you to treatment options. And I don't think either of those are really a bad thing.
Right.
So
I think I just want to add too that I think the importance of knowing, like, that's kind of one of the biggest things about HIV, transmission and how it moves. It's like a lot of times, most of the people who, who may be at risk, they might not know that they, are living with HIV at the time. So there's this window room where it's like, oh, well, I think I'm negative, but I haven't gotten tested in a minute. And so, if you're not in treatment, those things can, you know, make you more susceptible to, oh, you're gone. Those things can make you more
Sorry.
susceptible, you know, to, you know, transmitting the virus. So, yeah.
Yes, that's why it's important to keep HIV testing in your normal routine. They say, you know, like every 3 months, possibly when you think that you may have an exposure, maybe 2 weeks after that is a good time to start testing for HIV. But so now you and I both work in the HIV service provider field. So we know how things are now. We know what our experiences were like a decade ago, but we also know how they work now, since we both work in fields like Victoria was talking about, such as like linking to care. And I myself was an HIV tester, or I am an HIV tester, and you know, I've definitely had to go through that entire process with someone, you know, giving someone a positive test result and then linking them to, you know, a place that they feel comfortable with to start receiving treatment and care. So just talking about like getting linked to care, what was your experience like from after testing to going to a place to get linked to care?
Well, luckily we're in California, because this was back in Texas. So, and hopefully things are better there. And not to say that it was completely horrible either. It was just from the time that I got tested, I think I was in a space that was kind of, it wasn't really particularly gay friendly. You know, there wasn't anything like the LGBT center, you know. Over there, it was really just a hospital. And so I think the guy who was doing my testing, straight dude, he made it awkward, and I feel like he was trying his best not to, but he might have been making it more awkward. But luckily for me, I was already really educated, and so I was actually, I think I was actually um, pretty prepared for a lot of the information I was going to be getting. But I know that at times, like getting all that information at once can seem super scary. But yeah, you know, once there was a confirmation, um, you know, I think either somebody from his team just kept in touch with me and linked me to a clinic, you know, not too far down from there. And I started to, you know, just slowly see what my options were as far as like getting a doctor and possibly even talking about medication, which I didn't start until months later, you know, but I did start the initial processes. And luckily, once I got to the care side where people kind of knew what they were doing, I think it was a lot more therapeutic and helpful, you know. But at first, because I think I tested at a hospital, you know, sometimes those places, yes, I'm sure they do testing there, but they might not be as community friendly as they could be. So sometimes testing in a space that you might feel comfortable is super important to getting linked to, you know, a great place too. Just yeah.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important, especially how we're talking about how, you know, right now we're in California, we're in Los Angeles. When you were diagnosed, you were in Texas. When I was diagnosed, I was in Arizona, and pretty much the same thing with you. I wasn't in a space, you know, that was specific to queer needs, that was specific to HIV support. And so that's really the importance of spaces like the LGBT Center and a lot of the other places, a lot of the other options of resources that we have here in LA that other places in the country don't really have. So that is super important, and one of the key factors in folks getting linked to care is being in a space that makes them feel comfortable, being in a space that makes them feel like they're going to be taken care of, and that, you know, that they're going to make it through this thing and not, you know, not feel weird around non-queer people, maybe.
Right, right.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that and bringing that point up. Um, but yes, so as you said, you know, the team, um, that was linking you just kept in contact with you. And that's another point that's really important for us working at CHLA, Children's Hospital, and for the LGBT Center. That is how things work. You know, once you're diagnosed and you're getting linked to care, you're going to have an entire team that's ready to make sure that you're receiving all of the services that are available to you. And that could be anything from, you know, getting linked to an HIV specialist, any maybe housing resources, any maybe nutritional needs, you know, emotional support, such as like support groups for people who are living with HIV, and programs like B3 that you and I facilitate. So that is really important, and that's why we you know, I don't know about you, but I only, my linkage to care coordinator, which is like shout out to Victoria and all the other linkage to care coordinators who really make that link to from the person to the resources. There she is, and you know, her job is really important. And you know, the person who linked me to care, I got a phone call from them once just for them to be like, hey, you know, I just wanted to call you and see how you're doing with things, and that was like something that I'll always remember. And I never heard from her again. I mean, I moved and like all this stuff, and you know, I don't even think I remember what she looks like, but I know, you know, in my heart that I remember that a linkage to care coordinator called me, you know, afterward and was like, how, you know, I just want to make sure you're okay. So shout out to linkage to care coordinators.
Right. That's so funny.
Very, very special people.
Story, but yeah, interesting. I'm just, a lot of things when you were talking were coming back to me. But
yes. Okay. So how was your first doctor visit?
Actually, you know what? I don't think I legitimately had a doctor because I moved relatively soon. Like, I think my first doctor was here. And, you know, it's perfect because we're partnered with the center. I can rant and say, I love my doctor that I had at the center. You know, I'm not with the center's care anymore, but yeah, I loved it. He was so cool. It was awesome because I had never had a gay doctor before, so that was like another thing that was like so cool. You know, he'd worked in the community for a long time. He understood me. He wasn't judgmental about certain things. And I think that's like also something that, you know, again, we kind of talked about, but I think it's just something really important to remember. It's like when you're sharing stuff about your care and like really intimate parts of your life, if you don't feel like you're being, you know, supported or that people care, or in fact, they're like judging you and making you feel like crap, that's probably not the place that you need to be, you know, getting services of any kind. And I think a lot of times as, you know, as queer young men, we're so used to people not being okay with the sex that we're having, people, you know, having their own ideas about HIV, including people in the medical field. All these stigmas can still exist. And so just being aware of where, you know, who you engage with is super important, because there are doctors and there are staff out there who support you. So if you feel like they're not, you know, it's cool to move around.
Yes, and just taking it back to why we're so thankful for spaces like the center, and everywhere around LA has so many different options for people to choose from depending on where you are in the city. So speaking of doctor's visits, that whole experience of getting linked to a doctor for some folks can be a little scary depending on, actually, no matter how old you are. If you're a young person, you know, you and I, we see clients as young as like 14, 15 years old. And then, you know, we work with folks who are up to about our age. And, you know, you can get diagnosed anywhere on that timeline. You can be born with HIV, you know? So it doesn't, age doesn't really factor in, nor does it take away any of the 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 scariness of the whole situation. You know what I mean? You could be young and you can be older and still have the same fears about going to see the doctor and what they're going to tell you about what's going on with you. But something that I don't think that anyone should ever let them stop them from going to the doctor is insurance. Right. So that's always a really big thing, you know, whether I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on my parents' insurance, or I don't have insurance, or I don't have a job, so I don't have insurance, or I'm undocumented. Any of those things. The great thing about the linkage to care coordinators and benefit specialists and the entire team of folks who are working in the HIV field when you arrive, they're going to help you with all of that stuff. So if you don't have insurance here in California, someone will help you get registered for Medi-Cal, and Medi-Cal will help you take care of your doctor's visits and medication costs, right? Because that's another thing, like medication costs. Like we know that HIV medications can be thousands and thousands of dollars a month, and we're like, how are we going to pay for that? If you're undocumented, there are programs for folks who don't have insurance to sign up so that they can get everything, you know, doctor's visits and medication and anything related to HIV care for free of charge, which is amazing. And that doesn't have anything to do with like a public charge, or you're not going to get in trouble for being undocumented and seeking medical care services like HIV care. So all of those things. And then of course, if you're fortunate enough to have employer-based insurance, most employer-based insurances will cover doctor's visits and medications, maybe with a copay. And if there is a copay, then then there's things like copay assistance programs that will help you even pay for that copay that you have, whether it's, you know, 30, 40 bucks, 100, 200 bucks, whatever. There's so many different options and things that folks are eligible for so that they don't have to pay for those things. And so don't let that ever be something to discourage you from seeking HIV care. How has your experience been with insurance and stuff like that?
Luckily, again, because of Medi-Cal, I think relatively easy. I think when you look at like the price of medication and stuff like that, like it's just like without insurance, these things are all impossible. But luckily, you know, Medi-Cal covers that. So people living with HIV, I think that is like one worry that you should like never have, right? Like a lot of medical facilities are really going to like make sure that, you know, if you're diagnosed and if you are at, you know, asking for medication and everything like that, people are in all of the organizations that I have, you know, encountered, they're pretty quick to support, you know. If you're out of your medication, they're scrambling to figure out a way to make sure you get it, you know, connecting you to a doctor. All of these things are free. And so that might not be something a lot of people even know, you know. So I think that's also something that's really important for everybody to realize too, is that like at the bare minimum, if you have nothing, HIV care is still basically free, including medication, you know. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I would say my experience was relatively simple, just because it's like you sign a couple forms and like, okay, you got it, you know.
Yeah, I've been through all of it. I've had Medi-Cal. I've had nothing and was just on the straight Ryan White program, and ADAP, which is the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, and then I've had employer-based insurance. So, you know, I've thankfully been able to get my HIV care through all of those different options. But that kind of takes us into like talking about treatment. like talking about actually starting the medication and doing what we got to do to make sure that we, like it says here on my shirt, like to bring your viral load down, to, to hopefully eventually reach undetectable levels. Um, and so starting treatment for me, again, a decade ago
Right.
was a bit different than it is now. When I think when we were both diagnosed, there was only the option for well, there was tons of options, but there was only the one a day pill. Um,
Right.
yeah, and I think we both started on that. But now, and right, and it was a certain size, and it had a ton of ingredients in it,
Right.
So, but now, fast forward 10, 11 years later, there are tons of one a day options that all vary in different sizes, and for the most part, the advancements in pharmaceutical technologies have allowed uh, room to take out all unnecessary ingredients from the medication to only have the most effective ingredients in there so that they have less long-term effects on all of the organs in your body. So your kidneys, your liver, your heart, all of those things that might be impacted over long-term use have now been, improved and stuff like that. But so there are tons of medication options. Not very many with too many restrictions, such as like same time every day or with or without food. Um, uh, and what they help you do is to make sure that you have the smallest amount of virus in your body, because we know that this is something that you can't necessarily cure at the moment for right now. In the future, we hope, or actually we know in our lifetime, there will be something.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
but for right now, what the medications do is just suppress the virus as much as possible. And when you reach, when you're on your medication for a certain amount of time and it's working, then you will reach undetectable. And undetectable has many, many benefits. It means that that there's the least amount of virus in your body. So that means that it has less of a chance to do any damage to any of your body, because HIV runs through your entire body. It affects your entire body. It affects all of your organs. It causes inflammation throughout the body. So if you take your medication, it stops that, right away. The second thing is that we've all heard the horror stories of the 80s and the early 90s of folks passing away early, but with medication we are given a quote unquote normal life expectancy. And then the third thing, which I think is the cherry on top of taking medication, is that it prevents transmission of the virus through sexual contact. Do you remember what it was like when you first heard the words undetectable?
Um, it must have been in the beginning of my treatment, but I don't remember when. But I think it was really important for me to find that out, or at least to know about it. Um, and I still think that a lot of people still don't really like know it, to be honest. I think most people, even yeah, most young gay bisexual guys, like, or even older, I don't think they really know what undetectable is all about, and the benefits of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still lots of work to be done in the field of letting folks know, and actually what it is just dismantling the stigma, right?
Right.
So letting folks know that HIV treatment works, that all people living with HIV are worthy of love and worthy of acceptance, and all of those kinds of things that you and I work with our clients every day to help build that self-esteem, because right, we internalize stigma and then we experience stigma externally all the time, you know, whether that's through dating apps, through messaging, through friends, through family, through religion. Like, stigma is embedded in all of those places. So really quick before we wrap up, do you want to talk a little bit about how you and I tackle those things through B3?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of the conversations that we have with our B3 participants is really about your legacy and how your legacy and the things that you can accomplish should not be stunted by HIV, and that HIV is, you know, a small part of the things that you can create or be a part of your legacy. And HIV is as much of a part of your life as you want it to be, you know. And so a lot of times when people might, when they're diagnosed with HIV, they might have a negative outlook on the things that they might be able to attain, or they think that there's ways that their life might have to change, or things they might not be able to do. But that's not the case. You can go and, you know, conquer the world living with HIV. And so we kind of talk about the legacies of other people who are living with HIV, who created that, you know, that change in the world and did what they wanted to do while living with HIV. And we also talk about, you know, how, you know, sex is still a thing and we are allowed to have good sex. And so we kind of just talk about, you know, what are the ways that we can reduce, you know, transmissions. And a part of that is, you know, being undetectable. We talk about, you know, staying engaged in care and staying engaged with your team. We also talk about why all those things are important and how all of those things boost your self-esteem. You know, staying engaged in care, being able to have conversations that you want to have about your status. We also do disclosure techniques and stuff like that as well. You know, so we have lots of conversations around, you know, what it looks like to be someone living with HIV, what are the things we can attain, and how can we talk about these things with our friends and family if we and when we want to. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we cover.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy facilitating this program with you so much because we get to see folks coming in, like I said, at any point on their diagnosis timeline, and still have one perspective about what it is to live with HIV and then leave with another. And that's one of the things that I think that you and I have, we have also realized those things and within our own journey. And so we are just trying to help other folks get to that point within their journey of living with HIV. So if anyone is interested in any of those programs, you can always message Victoria or the LGBT Centers page to request access to those services. You can hit up CHLA or the B3 page for those services as well. Just, you know, never be afraid to reach out for support, because, you know, as you thought, as I thought 10 years ago, I was like, I don't know anyone else going through this.
Right.
I don't, and that's something else we see a lot too, is that we'll get a newly diagnosed person and they're like, I don't know anyone else with HIV. And I'm like, well, first of all, you do now, because you know
Right.
both of us.
Right.
But also,
Right.
we'll get you connected to a group, to a support group, so that you can meet other people going through the same thing. So no one is ever truly alone. You just gotta, you know, make that step to reach out, and you know, they'll be here for you. So yeah, I think we're at about time. So we'll say hey to Victoria and thank her for having us again here.
Well, of course, how can I not have you two fabulous, fabulous people here? Second. Yes, in the corner, all of the smiles. But yes, like Carlos was saying, if you are interested in getting connected to B3, or just honestly have any more questions for them, or just want to have like a one-on-one conversation, just let us know. You can either inbox them, inbox us. We're really open and flexible here. But I really want to hit home also on the HIV testing. We do have HIV testing here on site with very limited wait times. So, you know, if you're trying to just sneak in on your lunch break or you got to run down to the mall, again, let your girl know and we can try and make it happen for you. All right. So this has been absolutely wonderful. We are so excited that we got to have CHLA today. And then next week, I believe we have another participant. I don't remember who it is right now, but they will be getting an email from me soon. But we look forward to seeing everyone again and have a great day.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.